Hey, what's up, Backflow Broskies? It's your boy, the Backflow Bro. Today we're going to go over the ASSE 5000 2022 procedures for the double check valve. Essentially, it's more or less the same as the RP. I'm not sure if you could look at the RP single hose. There is a 3-hose test procedure that's on another video. Make sure to check that out. For today, we're going to do the single hose. I actually just finished a class with IATMO in New Jersey, coming from New York City. If you're doing Philadelphia or some other areas, you might have to do the 3-hose. So for that test, you actually have different videos, different test procedures. Today we're going to do the single hose. It's pretty much widely accepted in a lot of different areas. Today we're also going to do, it's kind of like we're prepping you for the exam. So if you're in a class, take a look at the exam. If you're in the field, just kind of refresh. If you took a class using the 2015 procedures, they did update them in 2022, but they're largely the same for the double check. Hasn't been a lot of different changes. So we're going to use the ASSE 5000 series. I think it says ASSE, IATMO, ANSI series 5000. Good test procedures for the double check. We have the 1 hose for the ASSE. It does say 5-valve here. We're going to adapt it to the 2-valve. You only use the high bleed option for the ASSE test procedures. So essentially, we have a 2-valve test kit from Kruger Instruments. If you need a test kit, definitely check us out. Link will be in the description. They're pretty durable. They're designed for the ASSE 1064 standards. So they should be applicable in whatever area you're working in. They have been designed for all of that. You have the line pressure kit and the 0 to 15 differential pressure. If you notice, there is only 2 valves, high bleed and low bleed. 5-valve and 3-valve kits will have additional valves. We only have the 2. If you read the ASSE 1064 standard, you can do a 2, 3, or a 5-valve arrangement. For the procedures, first step, I know what you're thinking, oh, I'm going to start opening test cops. The first step is notify, identify, inspect, observe. Most courses, most exams, you just kind of say the words. Some exams you might have to like elaborate. They might be like, well, what are you observing? Who are you notifying? For us, we're just going to say notify, identify, inspect, observe. You should know what those things mean. Next step is to flush the test cocks. For ASSE, they do have a very elaborate way to flush the test cocks, even for the double check. The reason you would kind of do it in a more complicated way is just in case there's a relief valve on the RP. But they just did it the same way, so we'll just do it that way for this test. You open 4, open and close 1, open and close 2, open and close 3, close 4. Again, the only reason you would do it that way is to prevent the relief valve from dumping, but because the procedures are that way, then we do that. For the 1015, the 5-valve procedures, you have to close the control valves. For the 2-valve kits, you don't have other control valves, so you just have the high and low bleed. So you close low bleed. It says to open your high bleed. It says open it. I wouldn't open it a lot. Just open it a little bit. Otherwise, you're going to spray everybody. Attach high hose to test cock 2. You notice there are no bleed valve arrangements. If you're doing the USC test procedures, they say to have a bleed valve and a short clear hose so you know what's what. For ASSE, they say just not. Open test cock 2. Your high bleed is open, so when you open test cock 2, it's going to start spraying. Just bleed out the air. That's the reason you do that. When you do that, you actually get your first reading. So for the test reports you're filling out, you notice the line pressure is 47, I'd give it. Has to resolve 5. So if it's in between 45 and 50, you just say like it's in between that. So we go ahead on our test sheet, mark the static line pressure 47. Now we start doing the test. We've already attached our test kit. You maintain the level of the test kit level with the top of the test cocks. I always keep it sideways. They might say to like move it this way. I always say the end of the high bleed and the gauge should be level, so you kind of hold it sideways level with the test cocks. Close shut off 1, close shut off 2, then you close shut off 1. They do have to be in that order. You're not supposed to open. The rule of thumb is if you're messing with shut off 1, shut off 2 should be closed. You notice the line pressure did not drop. That's actually your first reading. It doesn't really say it on the test procedures. If you're in the IATMO class, they will ask you about that. If the line pressure starts dropping, you know there's a leak through shut off 2. Doesn't fail your test. Important to remember, the test will actually pass even if you have a shut off 2 failure, but you have to mark it as leaking. Since it didn't leak, you go ahead and mark it. Shut off 2 at the bottom here. It depends on the test report you're using. We use the Kruger Instruments test report. Shut off 2, closed tight. Now we're going to do the check valve test. So maintain level test kit, open test cock 3. If you notice the pressure drops, you always want to open your test cocks kind of slowly. You don't have to be super duper slow, but you don't want to be like super duper fast because you can create water hammer in the valve and then you get inaccurate readings. I'm reading 3.3. So if it's in between the 0.2s, you say it's like in between it. Now it's reading kind of like 3.2. Shouldn't be dropping a lot. If it keeps dropping, that means you have a leaky check 1. If you have a leaky check 1, it'll go all the way to 0. This is still reading 3.2. So we'll go ahead and make that reading. Check valve 1, it's closed tight if it doesn't go to 0. And then you write 3.2. Now you move on to check valve 2 differential. Close test cocks 2 and 3. Remove hose. If you're doing a big, like 6-inch valve, which a lot of times double checks are on fire systems and they're very big, you want to actually loop it around. So you want to attach your high hose or disconnect your hose, attach hose to 1 and 2, and then open 1 and open 2. If you're doing the exam, they're probably just going to ask you to open shut off 1. Either one's fine. They kind of say to do it this way if you're working on a fire line, because a lot of times those 6-inch valves, you can actually, or whatever it is, 2-inch, even 2.5 inch, but anything bigger, you can actually mess up the valve opening it. So if you have like full line pressure coming this way, nothing coming this way, you actually like scrape the side of the valve when it comes open. So they say to link them this way, then open the valve, or just link them that way, period, and leave the valve closed. For our purposes, since we only have one hose, because we're doing the single hose, we'll do kind of both ways. So the shut off is open. You have re-established pressure to the assembly, which is on your sheet here. Re-established pressure to the assembly. Now you attach, so high hose is closed, or high bleed valve is already closed when you do this test. It says to close it here. They kind of say to kind of bleed it through. So that's probably an error on the sheet. I don't know who wrote these sheets. They're pretty slick though over at ASSE. So I'm surprised that they have an error here, but it is on the 22 procedure. So basically when you do the check valve 1 differential, your high bleed should be closed. It doesn't say to open it, but then it says to close it here. So what you do, what the best way to do it would be to have your high on your high side, high on test cock 3. Your high bleed is closed. I think they actually wanted to say to keep it open. Doesn't really say it to do that though, so they should say that. Now you open your test cock 3. Your high bleed's already open. Close it. If you didn't open it before, you should open and close it to bleed the air. close shut off 1 again. Or if you looped it, then you would want to close test cock 2. There is a 2015 version of these procedures that said to do that, but this one doesn't. Now you basically leave everything level with the top of the test cocks. You open test cock 4. We didn't go over this before, but if you have a shut off 1 leak, water will keep running out of the test cock. We'll simulate it here. So if you see this, that means shut off 1 is leaking. If it's not leaking, then that means it's closed. I'm reading 2.8. So for this test, you go and say check valve 2, close tight, 2.8. Because the water didn't continue running, we say shut off 1 is closed. If shut off 1 is not closed and it keeps running, you might want to try to like shut it a little better, depending on the test stand you're using, or in the field definitely, but in the test for the exam, you might run into where like you didn't really shut it as hard as you thought you did. You want to kind of like make sure it's 100% cranked down if it's bleeding through. For our case, that's not the case. So we go ahead and grab that reading. And then it says to restore assembly to pre-test condition. The ASSE marks it this way a lot of times. For our case, it was open when we saw it. So we restore it to the pre-test condition, meaning both sides are open. If you're in the field and, you know, like shut off 2 is already closed when you get there, then you leave it closed. For us, we're gonna open it because it was open. But anyway, again, this is just a demo on the 1 hose test procedures for the IAMO, ASSE, or ANSI Series 5000 test procedures, 2022 version. But thank you for joining us. Feel free to like and subscribe. If you made it this far, you definitely appreciated the content we have. If you have a backflow school and you want to sell test kits, I heard Midwest doesn't let you sell them anymore. Definitely check out the Kruger Instruments. We have a 2-valve test kit. It's kind of optimized for the 1 hose procedures, and we have the line pressure gauge now, so we can do a lot of the different test procedures that ASSE has included with the line pressure. But check us out, it's Kruger Instruments. Thanks again for viewing. Feel free to like and subscribe, comment if you have any questions, and thank you for joining us.